Hello and welcome to episode 262 of the Random Channel Podcast. I am Jason.
I'm Angel.
I am Kevin.
And actually, Kevin, it was only an episode or two ago that you were asking how early what the earliest we've ever recorded is. I think this takes the cake. I think this is the episode. It's early. It's a brisk 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time right now, and yeah, it's early. You guys awake? You guys ready?
Wish it was.
Hold on, I need to open up an energy drink.
What fine energy drink is sponsoring your morning this time, Kevin?
Rockstar Pure Zero Fruit Punch, 240 milligrams of caffeine with zero sugar, B vitamins, taurine, zero sugar again, as per the can. There's a word on here that I've never seen in my entire life. Erythritol, 2 grams of that.
It's whenever I decide to put something in my body, I make sure it definitely is a foreign word I don't know the meaning of. And I say that as a joke, but also I'm dead serious because everything we consume has words we've never heard of in it these days. So, well, enjoy your Rockstar Zero Energy Fruit Punch, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, it's an early show, but we've still got a pretty big episode full of small things. I have impressions of WarioWare Get Together's demo and its micro games. Angel's been checking out a management game of sorts called Conduct Together. Kevin's been playing a sort of similar game with a small name right in the word, Mini Metro. So because of all that, we're calling this episode Micromanagement. But kind of unintentionally, the mini continues into the news. We also have a bunch of bite-sized news to discuss in this episode too, from the likes of Gamescom to last week's Pokemon Presents. So there are timestamps at randomtown.com for those who are interested. Or if you're on YouTube, they're rendered a video. But if you're at randomtown.com, just click on the blog post for this episode. But starting us off bright and early, we've got one of our probably fullest what we've played segments in a while, actually, I'd say. All three of us have a game. 2 of which have been on the eShop for a little while now, a year or two, but one of which is on the cusp of releasing. So if there's no objections, I kind of want to start with the upcoming one, WarioWare Get Together. That cool with you guys?
Fine with me.
Okay, has anyone else tried the demo, or was it just me?
No, I didn't try the demo. I mean, I am very tempted to try the game, but it also feels like the kind of game that it seems so simplistic. I'd rather just wait for it to come out.
Yeah, WarioWare is admittedly kind of
like you said, it's on the cusp of coming out. It's almost like, man.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird game to demo, right? Because you don't want to necessarily spoil the micro games, but the core gameplay has always been so straightforward that, like, what are you doing except spoiling some of the micro games with the demo? Like, it's so to the point. But the reason I was interested in trying to get it together specifically is because I'm always excited for more WarioWare, especially after so long. This is also the one that seems to shake up the franchise's gameplay in the biggest of ways. Like, up to this point, each new WarioWare has always been built around a direct hardware input, motion, or touch, or gyro, or I guess face buttons. And then you, the player, you're directly affecting the micro games with that physical action. Like, we kind of talked about this in our E3 episode, right? Like, how the quote-unquote gimmick here amounts to the fact that you actually aren't directly interacting with the micro game. You're controlling a character who does. And these characters can engage every which way on the screen. You can move them around almost like a cursor. It makes it feel like basically the input isn't face buttons or touch or whatever. It's a mouse pointer. A mouse pointer with different abilities, but nonetheless kind of a mouse pointer. And that, while I wouldn't call it actually a concern, that did raise some questions. Not just for me, but I think a lot of folks. If you're moving around a cursor, is there variety in that? Can skinning it with different characters make a difference? Or are you just kind of making these sweeping motions and boom, microgame won? So fortunately, the surprise demo popped up to provide an answer, and that's why I wanted to check it out. And at least from the limited scope of the demo, the answer does appear to be that yes, there's variety, and not just kind of like, yes, there's some variety, but there's like a pretty resounding yes, there's a lot of variety. So the way it works here in the demo, and presumably in the final game, is that you start with just Wario at your disposal. His move is he can basically bonk into things with a side dash, actually kind of like his Wario Land games. And I'm sure that's a nod. But anyway, Whether that means, you're bonking to the arms of a windmill to spin it, or Hypnotis's like pocket watch to sway it, or knocking object off a suspended plate, you're just bonking things through the usual assortment of WarioWare randomness. But as you complete these microgame challenge sets, you begin to unlock other characters with their own abilities. There's like 18-Volt, who actually can't move freely, but instead has an aiming line. You can line up with an object you want to interact with and then shoot at that object. Or there's Mona, who is kind of the opposite, where she is constantly moving, except when you use her boomerang, at which point that's moving and she stays stationary. So ultimately, the entire cast of WarioWare is playable, but in the demo there's a handful with a bit of different variety. And when you go into any of the microgame challenges, but like in past games, are basically a high score attack where you have 5 seconds back to back to figure out each microgame. As you go into those, you get to choose at the start of each challenge which 3 characters you'd like to use. The game will then shuffle between them, so you never quite know which character you're going to be performing the microgame with at any given moment. And if anything, as weird as it may sound, it kind of feels like a natural evolution, or maybe even a direct sequel to how WarioWare Smooth Moves did its motion poses, if you remember those. Because you may remember back then how it would work is they added an extra beat between each microgame that had you hold the Wii remote in a certain pose. So you need to not just figure out what to do in the microgame when it popped up with its 5-second time limit, but also how to use your body in a particular way to achieve that goal. Like there's the Mohawk pose where you hold the Wii remote on your head, or there's that waist side one for spinning the hula hoop. And the best analogy I can come up with for describing how Get Together feels is to imagine if when playing Smooth Moves, the poses weren't married to the minigame. Like what if microgame. Like what if every microgame would be solved using any of the Wii Remote poses? Like they may have you do, hold the Wii Remote like a baton and punch up to hit a question mark block from Mario. But what if instead they also are like, put the Mohawk on your head and then you have to jump your whole body up to complete the microgame. Like the goal's the same, but the way you get to it can vary. And that, in a nutshell, is kind of what Get Together is doing with its character abilities. You're not just, on the fly determining the action needed per microgame. You're also needing to determine how to achieve that action using one of these multiple character abilities. And where it gets the most insane and the most varied, and where I think it's the most fun, is that you can actually choose an all option once you unlocked all the characters. So that puts the entire cast essentially on shuffle instead of just 3. And one, that feels the most like Smooth Moves for sure, because you don't really know what's going to throw at you and you're kind of like kept on your toes, but also it just makes it like really fun. Like I love it personally. It creates what amounts to like a second layer of depth for every microgame, not just in terms of how you interpret what to do, but literally in how some of the games are actually designed. Like with 18-Volt, for example, and his weird aiming reticle thing. There's a microgame where all you're told to do is escape, and you need to figure out a way to get to a helicopter that's at the top of a little like 2D side-scroller maze thing. And for characters like Wario or Mona, it's just a matter of moving them up there. But for 18-Volt, the microgame actually has to add rings on a track, and you aim the cursor at the ring, hit A, and then 18-Volt is kind of like hoisted to the chopper. So it's the same microgame in concept, but literally the execution and how it's presented does vary, which is, a step further than just the usual it's getting faster kind of tweaks that WarioWare's had in the past with its microgames. So it's probably one of the things I'm most excited about with the new WarioWare. Like they, because they already promised the usual 200 new microgames. The usual multiplayer side modes that have been there since like the GameCube one are there. There's new stuff that they announced, like there's something called the Wario Cup, where every week there's going to be an online leaderboard with a set rotating set, I guess, of microgames. And you can compete online to see what your score is. But the fact that like each microgame now has 2, 3, maybe 4 varieties beyond just that it's getting faster tweak, like that's a cool concept. So that's exciting. It's cool on paper at least, I should say. Because what I could not glean from the demo, and what I guess kind of remains to be seen, is like the demo's 15 microgames. And it's just a handful of characters. So you kind of get an idea of how it works. But how far can this idea be carried? Like, even in the demo, there are a couple cracks beginning to show. Like, if you're playing as Kat or Anna, whichever it is, one of the two sisters, their ability isn't as solid as something like 18-Volt's grapple or Mona's boomerang or anything, or Orbeon or whatever his name is, kind of having free floating grapple magnet grapple thing. But like theirs is great because you're just constantly jumping and can only face right. It's either cat or ant. One faces right, one faces left, but they can only face one direction. So while the little voice in the back of my head, I guess, from when it was first announced, about is there enough variety, that's been quieted, but now there's this other little thought, a little less of a thought, but there's other little thought of like not every character created equal, which sure you cannot select them, and that's fine, you only need 3, but it may put a damper on how much I'm loving the all character shuffle that's in the demo. So that remains to be seen. I also didn't get a chance to properly try the co-op mode. It is in the demo, but it's something I think I'll have to wait for the full game to really experience. But I will say, browsing the full character selection, like the list online, it does seem like co-op will have the advantage of some characters seem particularly well made for it.
Aren't any hidden characters or anything?
Well, I don't know, the demo's only like 8, or 6.
Oh,
but
no,
yeah,
well, it's because you said, the characters that...
Oh, I just meant the ones that are
select screen online?
Oh,
yeah,
the ones that are announced.
I thought it was kind of like, like in typical Nintendo fashion, they're like, here's everything in the game now.
I'll be shocked if the little Puyo Puyo guy with the tongue doesn't become a playable character. Like, he's not on the list, but I'm sure he's going to show up. He has a cameo in, like, the beginning of the game. Like, the whole premise of the game is actually straight up Space Jam 2. Wario and his crew get sucked into the game and have to play the microgames to get back out. And it starts with, them seeing that Puyo guy having a super successful game and Wario being like, no, we need to, like, top him and, like, over, working the team and making, like, this thing that thing has a mind of its own and eats them alive. But what I was going to say is, some of the characters I did see do seem more catered to co-op. Dribble and Spitz are these little, like, bullet hell style shooter ship things with their little cabs, and those seem like they pair together well in co-op. So there may be ways in co-op that even if, some characters seem like it just kind of, you just push things aside. There may be ways for variety in co-op that's different than single player just based on character selection, so that could be interesting. But really, as it stands at this point, the demo confirmed to me that for the most part, Get Together is in fact going to be a fun game that's going in an exciting direction that actually works. And it's out September 10th. I'm sure in one of our episodes after that, we're going to dive deeper into how it feels in terms of variety, modes, extras, how does that hold up as a full-fledged game. But it's really looking promising at the moment. So any concerns people had, after E3 where it was a different approach, it works. It works. And it still feels like WarioWare. It still has the personality. And it's cool to see everything in 3D now, and HD. So yeah, I'm happy with the demo. It's a long way to go to say it's good.
Cool. There's something there that did get me a little worried, which is that some characters will be like a little bit more optimized for runs, but I don't know. We'll see how that translates to the final game, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, already, like, that's kind of the crack that was showing that I was saying, right? Like, there are some characters that definitely seem like they're kind of just like, well, let's just make it harder by making them auto jump or whatever. But yeah, I think there will for sure be. This is so weird to say. There's going to be a meta to WarioWare. There's definitely going to be characters that are better, that are worse, that you need to use to do the online Wario Cups. Like, it's definitely going to shake out that way. It's just to what extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, hey, like, if ultimately it turns out that the best input for this WarioWare ends up being, it's not, but hypothetically, if it's 18 volt and his little grapple shoot thing, okay, so the input for this WarioWare is a guy that has a little grapple shoot thing, and that's the mechanic. Like, that's not that far removed from what WarioWare was. I think it would only be bad if it was just someone who you can just, like, brush things off the screen with, like WarioWare's side dash. Like, if that was the pinnacle of the game, okay. But if it's one that has a little more to it, that doesn't at least bother me personally. But I guess time will tell, to your point. But yeah, so that's WarioWare. That's the only thing that's...
When does it release?
September 10th, so very soon. Wow. But that's the only thing that's, like, upcoming. But you guys have been playing stuff that's out. So I don't know who wants to go first, but... Up to you guys. We have 2 games that are kind of similar.
Me, you. What if we talk about our games at the same time?
Ooh, yes. 3,
like alternating sentences,
2.
or like speaking simultaneously?
Speaking simultaneously. Then listener, you can just focus on one of our voices to see which one you'd rather hear.
We'll
That's how it
release
works,
the stems. Right? We'll release the stems for this episode, and people can remix it to only hear the tracks they want to hear of your 2 impressions.
You know, Sony released back when they were really into like 3D gaming. They released a monitor where each player. So like if you're playing like split screen, you would have a pair of glasses that would make it so that you would only see like your own. It was to curb.
I remember that. Yeah, to stop screen peeking.
Yeah, screen cheating. Yeah, there we go. That it'll be exactly that, but just with our voices instead.
Or Kevin, when you edit this, if you want to mix it, you could put one of you in one ear and one of you in the other.
Ooh, yeah, that would work.
Yeah. And then, and then maybe all 3 of us talk at once about Pokemon, and then we use spatial audio, and one of us can be above the person, to the left, behind, to the right, up front. Like, it'll be ridiculous.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah,
oh,
this
man.
is genius. This is the type of stuff that being half awake at 7 a.m. inspires, I guess. But,
in that case, I guess I'll just go first.
All right, so Mini Metro, right?
Yeah, so Mini Metro, what to say about this game? Aside from this game has actually been out forever. It's been out since like 2015 on Windows, came to like Android in 2016, came around to Switch in 2018. And just like disclaimer, I have not been playing this on the Switch. I have been playing it on the PC, but it's essentially the same game. There's going to be absolutely no difference between on what platform you play this game. But Mini Metro, I've actually been playing the sequel to this game a whole lot, to the point of obsession. And the sequel is called Mini Motorways, and it was on the it was an Apple Arcade exclusive up until about a month and a half ago. And that's now on Steam, and according to the devs, it will be out on Switch early next year. But man, I wish it was on Steam already. It was on Steam. It was on the Switch already, because like, it's like a perfect little mobile game that the Steam would definitely benefit from. But as far as Mini Metro goes, it's just not doing it for me. Even if it were on Switch, that there's like no bump that it would have helped critically in my mind. It's a puzzle / simulation game where you are creating the transit network of different in real life cities. So the very first city that you play is London. And the game starts out easy enough. At the beginning, well, especially for the London level, you have 3 stations, and each station is denoted by a shape. So the most basic stations that you'll have to connect right at the beginning are like a square station, a circle station, and a triangle station. And you're just clicking on each of them, dragging over to the next station, and dragging to another station, and that will create, a line. And then that just means that there will be a subway or a train, whatever you want to call it, that will then just automatically run through that line. You're not actually controlling the trains. And so passengers will then show up at these stations, and passengers are also denoted by like those exact same shapes. So a square passenger will have to be dropped off at a square station, circle passenger will have to be dropped off at a circle station, and so on. And as time progresses, more stations will start popping up randomly on the map. And you basically have to choose whether you want to create a new subway line, assuming you have the resources to create a new subway line, or if you want to extend an existing line that you already have. There's a clock on the top right of the screen that notes the day of the week. And at the end of the week, you'll be giving an upgrade that you choose from. Usually you will get like an extra train, but then you'll get other options such as the ability to like make an extra line, or the ability to make a tunnel that will go through like river channels, a faster train, a bigger train, that kind of thing. And like at the beginning of each run, these railways are pretty easy to manage, but the longer you go, the more complex they become and the harder they become to manage, and the more passengers that you'll have to get to their desired stations. And this is like a score-based game, so there are high scores, there are leaderboards, that kind of thing. That's where the replay value really comes in. On like the presentation side, it has this incredibly minimalistic look that's supposed to invoke the look of like transit maps. The backgrounds they like look very boring. They're just like a stark white, but they're contrasted against the lines that you create, which are these like incredibly bright colored, whatever you would find on a map, your red line, your green line, your blue line. The music is also like very minimalistic, and you get little sound cues when a new station pops up or when like you plop a second train to a line. And the music, as minimalistic as it is really, really fun to hear. What's that word that I'm looking for? It's very I don't want to say generally like what's the word that I'm looking for? Crap, I can't think of the word. The music is great. When it comes to the actual gameplay, it's not that I have an issue with the gameplay, in like all honesty. It's just that I'm too stupid to manage even 2 or 3 lines efficiently. It's too much information for my idiot to take. Like, especially because you have to worry, like, towards after about like 2 or 3 weeks, you start to have to worry about transferring passengers across multiple lines once you get pretty deep into a run. And then, like, I'm not certain when passengers will be dropped off at a station that's on a line that will eventually get them to the right destination. I just never make it far into a game because I become too frustrated. I just recently finally hit over 1,000 points on the very first map, and that's usually what I like to do. I like to get to 1,000 and move on to the next one. But it took me, I don't know, I've been playing this game for about 3 weeks now, and it took me 3 weeks to finally get over 1,000 points. And yeah, there's like different strategies that you can try. You are allowed to like erase an entire line. That way you can, fix it up a little bit. But by then you're still backed up with passengers. Every now and then a special shape a special station will show up. That's like a star station. And then it's like, great. And I have this entire map that I have to look at now. And I have to make sure that I have like some sort of central station that will eventually connect to the star station. I don't know, man. I just never make it far into a game because I become too frustrated. There is an element of RNG to this game, but like I don't know. The RNG is fine. Is there
a lot of like? I have to imagine as you build out your map, there's got to be a lot of just like panning and zooming going on.
Oh yeah. The more stations that happen, the more that the map zooms out.
I see. So what? So what is it? Because you're saying you like the sequel, which admittedly isn't on Switch, but you're saying you like the sequel more. So is it less going on at once? Like, what is it about the sequel that clicked that didn't with this? Since it sounds like it's the management part that you're tripping up on a little.
It's much easier to track what exactly has to happen in that. And eventually I will get around to talking about mini motorways whenever it does release on Switch. But that one's definitely much easier to track what has to happen in that game. It's not as complicated. And that game, I'm hitting higher scores into like the 1800s and 1900s, that kind of stuff. So that's fun. I don't know, that game has, that similar gameplay loop. But instead of a transit way, the game is called Mini Motorways, you're mapping out roads. And like once the tutorial in that game was over, I knew what to do. As opposed to like Mini Metro where I just scratched my head in confusion because I must have done the tutorial a good handful of times and it still didn't click with me. It's just this unfortunate case where I've played the sequel, which I find much more fun to play, that whenever I play Mini Metro, I just think to myself, I could just be playing Mini Motorways instead.
Right. It's admittedly, like, I've looked at Mini Metro because I love the look of the game. Like you were saying, the kind of mirroring subway maps and the colors
so
and the
you got a T-shirt based on it.
Yeah, I do. Well, no, it's not a T-shirt based on it, but I do have a shirt that actually is of a New York City subway map, like really minimalist design that is basically the game but monochrome. But yeah, and I keep looking at like this would be fun, but then what you're saying about getting kind of overrun by it, I keep having that thought like, oh, it's gonna be fun for like 2 minutes, and I'm gonna be like, too much. So I do kind of relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, and then like I said, mini motorways is definitely, it's much easier to get a grasp of what's going on in that game. And there is one aspect of that game that I still don't understand. Like, there are traffic lights, which I don't know is kind of counterproductive to that game, to like the object of that game. But while in Mini Metro, everything feels like it's going to help you, whether it's a faster train, a bigger train, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it just doesn't click with me the same way that Mini Motorways did. And like, this game's critically acclaimed. Like, it's insane the amount of people that love this game. But I don't know. It's a good game. It just, like I said, it just does not click with me at all.
Right. Yeah, and there's always games like that, right? Like, it's not like every game's going to resonate with every person.
Right.
But the fact that you gave it a shot for 3 weeks is commendable, given that it's not clicking.
Yeah, like I said, I used to get like in the 400s. I finally hit 1,000. I'm like, okay, I can try to keep going, but it just becomes that thing where it's just a lot of information on the screen. And then I just get bored, and I'm like, I'm not even going to finish this run. I'm just going to quit. Like, I'm not going to wait until I, quote unquote, get the game over screen. Right. I was going to say die, but like, you don't die in this game.
You just gridlock an entire city.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, that's Mini Motorways. That's Mini Metro. I got Mini Motorways on the brain.
Yeah. Angel, you're also trains. You personally are also trains, right? You're made of trains.
Yeah, based on the description Kevin gave, the game is similar-ish. I guess I don't want to say like, oh, if you like this one, then you like the other one. Because first, I don't know. I haven't played on Mini Motorways. But this one, I am enjoying. It definitely doesn't sound as complicated, although that's probably not the best term for it, because both games seem like kind of on the somewhat simplistic side. But in Conduct Together, the idea is that you're essentially switching trains between tracks so they don't crash. That's like all you're really doing. It starts off pretty simple. You have one train, one track, and at some point on the track, it crosses through like a street where there's traffic. So you have to essentially use either any of the directional buttons, up, down, left, right, on the D-pad, to tell the train when it gets to an intersection to either go left or right or up or down, so that it avoids traffic. You can also completely stop the train, and you can also slow down time temporarily whenever your meter is full. And slowing down the time, all that does is just give you more time to think, because eventually you're going to be managing multiple trains at once. And in order to beat a level, you have to transport a certain number of people from one station to the other. When you pick up people wearing red shirts at one station, you then have to take them to the red station. Or if it's blue for blue, yellow for yellow, white for white. And it can get kind of hectic at times. And I mean, obviously that's a good thing, because that's just when the difficulty goes up. Sometimes they introduce these tunnels that they don't allow you to see exactly what's going on. So if you see a car go through the tunnel, then you're more than likely going to have to wait a little longer than usual, because you don't want to risk crashing into it, because there's literally nothing you can see. And once the train is inside a tunnel, you also can't stop it. It's almost like you're losing connection or something. But yeah, like the game, it's kind of funny because that's kind of like all there really is to say about it as far as it's like its mechanics. But I don't know, it's simple fun. It definitely feels like an iOS game kind of put on a computer, just because if you're controlling more than one train, each train is designated a certain button. The tracks are laid out. Usually the junction areas are spread out enough that it isn't confusing. Yeah, confusing. They label, I guess, which button will interact with each. They label what button will interact with each, I guess, fork, and you don't have a cursor, so it's not like you're manually picking which one you want to change, which is good because, when it gets really hectic, you want to be able to change it instantly. But you also have the option to use touch, and I played it both ways. I played it on the TV, I played it just using the touchscreen, and using the touchscreen sometimes just feels more intuitive because, you want your train to stop, you just tap it. You want a specific railway to switch directions, you just tap it. Like, everything is a simple, just tap it. But there are certain actions like, using the slow-mo that just kind of feel better on the controller. So I still haven't quite decided which one I will ultimately end up using. But, as the name implies, you can also do this with someone else to kind of divvy up the conducting actions. Or, you could kind of be a little crazy and just use two Joy-Cons separately if you want, like, some extra challenge. But, I don't remember exactly how much it cost, but...
Well, we both bought it at, like, a crazy discount. It was like $1.
Yeah, because it's been sitting, like, on my Switch for... Yeah, oh, you're right, I think it was $1 for us.
But here's my question. It was $1 for us. You said it was kind of an iOS game. I haven't tried it yet because it's $1 and it's been sitting on my Switch. I looked it up last night when I was putting the notes together. It's $20 normally.
Well,
considering you said it kind of feels like an iOS game, and it's not a knock against the time and energy and money put into iOS games, but just like the marketplace of iOS games, is 20 too much? The right amount?
Damn. I mean, obviously I didn't play through the whole game, but like just based on like the map, because essentially like you go level to level. Each level you can earn up to 3 stars depending on how quickly you finish it. And I mean, if you crash, you instantly lose, so you have to start over. So like, it seems like there's a bunch of levels in this game, but damn, I mean, $20 for $1. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. I mean, we bought it with, I guess what I imagined was like not a ton of real interest outside of the fact that it was $1, and visually, I mean, it's visually appealing. It's very simplistic. It's not quite as minimalistic as Mini Metro, but it's kind of like that other game that I talked about, like the Mountain Downhill game, but very polygonal, very simple polygons. I mean, the people that you pick up are literally like upside down triangles with little tiny spheres for heads. But oof,
it sounds like you're very gently saying, "Don't spend $20."
No, I don't know. I mean, because it could be worth it. Like, I just don't know exactly how many levels there are in the game. But at the same time, outside of it just getting more and more hectic, it's like, I don't know how many people will, kind of get over the mechanic long enough to maybe get to the end. Or maybe satisfied. Because, I mean, it is just, at the end of the day, it's a puzzle game. So, I mean, if it clicks with you, then I'm sure the $20 will be worth it. But if you're just like, yeah, this is fun, it's okay, like, I don't know. Like, I think it's definitely worth more than $1 for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's almost at that weird cut. Like, if it was 15, I almost feel like it'd be much easier. I recommend at that price. But for 20, I almost want to say, check out some videos.
I was going to say, as point of reference, Mini Metro is 10 on the Switch.
Yeah. Like, I almost want to say, just check out some videos, and if what I said, like, maybe sounds like it might be up your alley, then you're probably good getting it. But if you're on the fence, just wait for, like, a discount. I mean, it seems like the eShop is constantly going through discounts, but there's also so many games in it now that by the time it gets to me, like, Conduct Together again, who knows when that will be. I don't know, watch it already be on sale. Who knows?
And to be fair, the reason we fell into Conduct Together was a friend recommended it when it was on sale for $1. So it's one of those things I don't think even 2 years ago, 3 years ago when it came out and the eShop had, hundreds, not thousands of games or thousands, not tens of thousands. Even then, like, it was good. It's one of those things that could easily get buried unless you hear from someone that it's worth the $1 or the $5 or the $10 or whatever discount it is,
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much Conduct Together. Fun, simple game. Debatable whether it's worth $20, but yeah, not much else to say about it.
Well, then, keeping the mini train going here, both Yeah, no, pun absolutely intended there. Keeping the mini train going here. It feels like the news cycle was also packed with a lot of little bite-sized things. Guess we can move away from what we're playing into the news. Some stuff that was announced arguably didn't say enough, and we don't have much to say about. Like, I don't think anyone here is chomping at the bit to talk about the Puma Animal Crossing collaboration that didn't give us any official info on any of the shoes, but it exists.
Let's go.
But other news that came out arguably, even in its brevity, was maybe too much, and maybe I'm the only one that felt this way, but on Friday, Nintendo dropped a Metroid Dread trailer that, like, don't get me wrong, the game looks amazing with each new clip released, but was it really worth spoiling all the things there? Like, basically what they did is they just did a laundry list of spoilers, like all these quick flashes of new stuff, and we're not going to spoil it here, but there's a trailer, there's a corresponding Metroid Dread website update that literally just lists out items and familiar faces from past games and a couple new ones. No real explanation of what they are, no explanation of what they do, just kind of like, hey, remember this, for like 10 things. And I don't know, it just felt like spoilers for the sake of spoilers. I mean, I guess to build hype and market the game, but...
Nintendo's showing too much before
I know.
the game? No.
It reminds me of, I remember with the Mario Kart 8...
Didn't we just make the joke earlier?
What?
We made this joke earlier already, too.
Did we?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
With what? When?
Did we?
No. WarioWare.
Oh.
Well, at least I did.
I mean, that's a demo as opposed to an entire
Yeah, that's
trailer.
a demo. Or did you... Oh, Angel, did you mean in terms of me saying how the whole cast list is online?
No, I just made a joke referencing the fact that Nintendo reviewed.
Oh, yeah, you did. That's right. Yeah.
Not that they actually did.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this is them just like literally
the
laundry
infamous Mario
listing.
Kart is like the worst example, probably.
Yeah, I'd say Mario Kart 8 Direct is a really bad example. 45 minutes of every menu option. I know you always have a bone to pick with Pikmin 3's rollout back in the Wii U days. But yeah, this was one of those weird things because it was very brief. Like, the article is brief, the trailer is brief, everything looks great, but it's just like, why even, like, say some of it? Like, do you need to know attack X, Y, and Z are available now? Like, you need to know that today? Like, that is it going to sell you on the game if, like, an ice beam is there? Like, I don't, or an ice missile? Like, I don't know. Anyway, if you do want to watch the trailer and haven't seen it, it will get you hyped. Like, it looks really good. It will spoil things. We'll link to it, and the corresponding Metroid Dread report, as they call it, on the blog post for this episode. But my point was there's a lot of... Actually, you know what? Double tangent. We're doing it. We're tangenting on tangents. Another thing that was short and to the point that I know we have a bone to pick with. Kevin, what's up with Riptide, this event that Nintendo got some controversy for on Friday?
I'm going to make this short because I feel like at this point I'm going to sound like a broken record. So Riptide, I believe, is an organizer of Super Smash... of a modded Super Smash Brothers Brawl tournament. And Nintendo basically contacted them, said, no, you guys can't do it. As far as I know, I believe this was going to be done online because we're still living in COVID times. But even if it wasn't...
Well, he's livid.
Oh, I'm livid for sure, yeah. I don't know, this is the same thing that happened with the Big House a while ago. This is for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which I believe the servers aren't even up anymore. Do either of you guys know?
They shut down the servers a few years ago.
Okay, so there's absolutely no way to play this online. I don't know, man. Just... it's so infuriating, Nintendo's way of doing anything when it comes to... They clearly just do not care, and I don't know, man. Like I said, at the expense of sound like a broken record, this sucks. Nintendo sucks for doing this. If you defend Nintendo for this, I'm sorry, you're a bootlicker at that point. No, dude, that's unacceptable. The worst part is that it's going to happen again at some point, and we're just doing the cycle all over again, the same way that we did with the Big House. It's not like that time where, there's that guy that was housing a bunch of ROMs. Sure, that's different.
Yeah.
This, I don't know how you defend this.
What's even weirder about this is, so they were going to play a tournament with what? Project Plus, which is like Project M2.
Plus.
Yeah, and that, from my understanding, because once you mentioned that, this was something that was of interest to you, I kind of looked around a little. That, from my understanding, isn't even online. Like, obviously it's a mod game, but to run it at the tournament, they needed copies of Smash Bros. Brawl running on they need the actual discs. They're running it locally off the discs. So, like, I almost understand the concerns that Nintendo may have about IP protection, not wanting to draw attention to illegal piracy and that sort of thing, but like they're running it off purchased Smash Bros. Discs. They bought the game. Like what? Like why is this a concern? Like how's it different than anyone modding anything else anywhere else in the world? Like
it's insane how
I don't get it. Yeah,
it's insane how there was recently a story that a modder for, I believe, Fallout New Vegas, or it might have been Fallout 4, literally just got hired by Bethesda. And here we have Nintendo just being like, "Oh no, you're not going to do this at all." It's so annoying. Oh, and I hate seeing people. And yes, it is a matter of opinion, but I hate seeing people defend Nintendo like, "Oh, they have to defend their property." Do they? No, there's a law that allows them to defend their property. They do not have to, and there is no reason to in this case. It's so annoying. Ugh. Pisses me off to like no extent.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me is like I understand. I mean, Disney's the same way with their overprotectiveness of like Mickey and stuff, and I understand on some level a brand image that they want to maintain. But this isn't mainstream. Like Riptide. I mean, I'm clued in on what's going on in Nintendo. I've never heard of Riptide before. Like this isn't even among fans. This isn't super mainstream. It's like if there's a small community of modders who really enjoy doing this thing, and within that community, it's creating enthusiasm for Nintendo products that will lead to further purchases of Nintendo products, and it's not something that's going to like expand to this greater audience. I don't get what the issue. I mean, I do understand, Nintendo's probably like, it's a slippery slope, but like really, like 12 people playing in a tournament of this other Smash, or let's say 200 even. They sold 90 million Switches. Whoever number of people at Riptide isn't going to matter. Or they sold 100 million Wiis. Whoever people at Riptide is a drop in the bucket. Like it is a slippery slope, but like it feels like overreaction at this stage.
Yep, and it's gonna happen again in the future, like I said.
Of course,
and we're gonna get mad all over again, and it's just like I said, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Stop defending Nintendo when they make poor decisions like this. Please stop, people. Jesus Christ. It goes back to that thing that I said a while ago where it's like, oh, I guess it's only okay when Nintendo does it. Like, I'm not seeing enough outrage on this. Yeah, I'm seeing the outrage, but obviously because, like, you go on Twitter, you click on the little trending tab, and it's like, Riptide. Oh, yeah, some people are talking about this. If EA was doing this with any of their games, the entire gaming industry would be set ablaze. And once again, I'm not defending EA. EA sucks. But please stop defending Nintendo when it comes with this stuff.
EA's better in 2021 than they were in like 2017, 2015. Like they've turned around a little. They're not the best company in the world, but
how low their bar is, it's like
I feel like them and Activision sort of switch places in a lot of people's mind. I just mean in terms of game stuff, not the other things going on with Activision, but which are significantly worse and definitely need to be addressed. But like in terms of like the like MO of like, the big third party company that just rests on its laurels and keeps pumping out the same stuff. Like I feel like EA and Activision kind of swapped in this generation, or like last generation maybe.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, that's I had to get that off my chest. I can't wait to do this 3 months from now again.
But it's one of those things that like, right, like, I'm saying there's all this news that's like bite size and like it has impact. Like, like this was a 2-sentence statement released by Riptide, and it rippled. Like, it caused a Riptide, if you will. It was trending on Twitter. You're right. Like, Nintendo was in the U.S.'s top trending topics. There's like 70,000 tweets about this, which on one hand isn't a lot, but also it was like number 4. It was like right under all the Kanye shenanigans from the other night. So like, it got attention, sorta. But yeah, I think it's just gonna keep happening, and we'll see what they do. But yeah, that was all us getting a little derailed with Metroid with this. It's supposed to be a smooth transition to some like normal news. like where I was actually going with all that bite-sized talk was to say that, you know, it was very notable at Gamescom and the opening night live presentation this week. And I was going to just segue into that, but then I went on a tangent and Kevin went on a tangent. Angel, do you have a tangent? Do you have anything you want to get off your chest before we get to Gamescom? It's only fair.
Nah, this is already heavy. I need to give that time to breathe.
Okay, fair. Like a fine wine, it needs to. What's the word where you aerate or whatever? But yeah, so let's talk Gamescom then, or more specifically, opening night live was this past week. Second year they've done that, I think, maybe third. Kevin, Angel, did either of you watch it?
No, but I was like kind of keeping track on Twitter, like with what was getting revealed, and yeah, I didn't really watch anything.
What do you guys think of as a whole? Never mind the actual announcement, but as a whole, like thoughts? I thought pacing wise, it was pretty good this year. Like just in terms of the flow.
I could imagine that maybe the pacing was good, maybe it was bad. I don't know, but
I mean, even on Twitter, you should have seen like the cadence of announcements, I guess. But yeah, I get your point.
Yeah, if the pacing was great, that's awesome. Keeping a nice steady pace of game announcements is always great. If the presentation for how they showed off those games was cool, then that's even great too. Maybe make it more of a staple to have a big elaborate showcase, panels or something. Assuming they had that. If they didn't, then maybe they should include that.
Angel's doing a choose your own adventure based on what you watched when you saw opening night live. Well, Kevin, you actually watched it. Like, what did you think of the pacing?
Oh, I was like coming in and out of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of was working at the same time, but I don't know. It felt to me like it was a little better structured and kind of refined over like the Summer Game Fest kickoff and even some of the other digital events. I mean, I think Nintendo's the one that's really mastered the format of digital presentations compared to everyone else in the industry, but like credit where it's due to Jeff Keighley and his team. I feel like opening night live this year, like kind of how they mix smaller and bigger content, it just flowed really well. Like it didn't feel like it was stagnant. Like maybe it's just because I'm getting tired of Jeff Keighley always promoting Death Stranding. Maybe they didn't need like 10, however long it was with Death Stranding director's cut. Maybe they didn't need like 10 minutes of Call of Duty Vanguard, although I understand why. But like in terms of big announcement, little announcement, indie announcement, major announcement, deeper gameplay, interview, big announcement, little announcement, like it felt a lot like how like Xbox or PlayStation would do their conferences. So it was actually like just more varied. So that was kind of nice. But for Nintendo fans, though, there wasn't much. I mean, Gamescom isn't really that huge of an event in the Nintendo world. Like, I feel like at one point they were trying to treat it like a European E3 and save a few announcements. Like, I vividly remember it was like the mid-2000s, and Nintendo hosted a conference where they announced both Battalion Wars 2 and Mario Strikers Charged, which in retrospect is kind of funny that they were literally like, hey, we're in Europe, so let's give them some soccer and a game by one of their own studios, and that'll be a big blowout. It'll be great. But in the years since, like Nintendo, they kind of just use Gamescom as like a PAX style event. Like Nintendo of Europe, when it's a live event, would do Treehouse Live equivalent streams. I forgot what they called it. It was like the box or something. It was like get in the box with Nintendo of Europe. But, new info isn't really that much of a thing on the Nintendo side, especially when they always have their own September Nintendo Directs, which we're almost at September, so that's probably happening soon. But that does mean that for Gamescom, it's really kind of an opportunity for third parties to fill the void or try or not or whatever. And in the case of this year, we did get some nuggets of new info relevant to us Switch folk that we're kind of worth touching on. Like, there's some cool stuff. Again, sort of small, but kind of cool. The biggest of the small is an entirely new Marvel title called Marvel Midnight Suns. It's developed by Firaxis Games, the team behind XCOM, which the second I saw that, I thought of you, Kevin, because you like XCOM, right?
I love XCOM. XCOM 2 is on the Switch, but XCOM Enemy Unknown is not, which is a travesty because I believe that first game is way better.
So, Marvel, XCOM, essentially some sort of crossover, at least conceptually. On board?
Conceptually, because apparently it plays nothing like XCOM. So
wait, what?
Now I'm really interested. Yep.
That's it. That's the thing. See, this is the point about the bite-sized announcements that's kind of annoying. Is like here again, all they didn't show gameplay. That's not being shown until September 1st, so all we know at this point, as of this recording, is that the game will be a tactical RPG. It'll focus on not just upgrading individual characters, but the relationships between them. And that Firaxis, the developers, actually created their own protagonist with the help of Marvel called the Hunter, who the player will customize as they go. That's all we know or knew. And then they just showed a CG trailer. So I think a lot of people made the assumption of, oh yeah, if it's the XCOM guys, it's going to be like Marvel XCOM. But it's not, I guess.
Yeah, there was a story, I believe, on PC Gamer that said, yep, this game is going to play nothing like XCOM. There are going to be you are going to get an XCOM sort of feel, but it's not going to be a tactics sort of style game.
That's so
your
interesting.
Final Fantasy Tactics, your XCOM, your Gears Tactics, all these games with tactics in the name.
But yeah, no, that's interesting because like conceptually, even if it was XCOM, it felt like all the right moves for the Switch audience. I mean, like the game's coming to every platform when it launches in March, but Switch seemed primed for it because, the user base is already very familiar with XCOM style of gameplay, which I guess it isn't, but Mario and Rabbids is pretty similar. So like that kind of entry point's there. Obviously XCOM's on the Switch. And then like the Switch already has a million selling stat focused Marvel game in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. So like this felt like the perfect marriage of those that would just hit that audience. So that's interesting they're going in a different direction. I guess whatever it turns into though, it likely coincidental, but it seems like Midnight Suns will pair nicely with anyone who's played Ultimate Alliance 3. Like, 'cause, Ultimate Alliance is based on the comics, but it loosely associates with what people know from the movies and shows, Infinity Stones, the heroes you can choose, that sort of thing. Midnight Suns, on the other hand, it seems like it's forging into a territory of a more specific 90s series of comics that focus on a group of heroes, some Avengers, some not, who are stopping some demon mother named Lilith or something like that. So it kind of feels like it's sort of a deeper cut or like next step for more casual fans who played Ultimate Alliance 3. Probably not intentionally, just it kind of has that progression. But yeah, gameplay-wise, now I have no idea what to think. But I suspect it will be deeper.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it has to be deeper than Ultimate Alliance 3 because that's pretty light and breezy. I mean, we never actually talked about it, but Angel and I have been playing. I think we mentioned in passing, but we have been playing Ultimate Alliance 3.
Jason beat a game.
Yeah, we just, in our game night group this past week, just finished Ultimate Alliance 3. And yeah, I have to imagine Midnight Suns is going to be deeper. Because, I mean, Angel, what did you think? Like, now that we've beaten Ultimate Alliance, what did you think of the game as a whole? Because it's pretty light fare.
Yeah, light and fair is putting it lightly. It's the perfect like turn your brain off and just play. It's like watching. It's like having the TV on when you're doing something else and you're not really paying attention to the TV, but having the TV on just like gives you comfort for some reason, or you just like having it on even if you're not really fully invested in it. It's that in video game form, and obviously like if you're really into it, you actually can pay attention to it. But the way we have been playing essentially is, we jump on these game sessions like on Mondays, and we're just having like a casual conversation, and it's kind of nice just being able to, focus on the conversation and just kind of have something going in the background. It's like, we're just chatting about what have you, movies, Ninja Turtles, some random stuff. And it's like, oh, they got another Infinity Stone. All right, that's cool. All right, let's keep it going. And yeah, like it definitely is very much the kind of game that I would not enjoy by myself, because it can get very repetitive. I mean, it's a beat 'em up, and it does have like a leveling system, but to me that doesn't really amount to too much. Like, I mean, and if you're not invested in, I guess, the character stats and stuff, you're just gonna upgrade things willy nilly. I was just kind of upgrading things whenever they gave me currency. And I never switched characters. I was playing as a character named Crystal, which I believe is an Inhuman, but I am not sure. No, she was cool. She was able to fly. She was able to shoot, shoot fire, wind, water, or throw earth. Or
she summons Captain Planet.
The ground. And depending on what the last attack I used was determined, what type of projectile I would shoot normally just by tapping A. But like in many other games of this type, it never really felt like it mattered what attack I did, because they all did a lot of damage and they all really, at the end of the day, kind of felt the same way. And I mean, the story, there is a story. I mean, visually, I think they did an awesome job with the art style. I mean, I think that definitely suits the Marvel comic looked much better than, I would even say, the Avengers game on
Oh,
PS4 and
100%.
these other consoles.
Yeah, they were. I
Like,
still
that
remember
one is,
they were announced in the same week, and I just gravitated right to Ultimate Alliance because the Avengers game just felt like a movie knockoff. This feels like kind of a comic book come to life, and it has its own personality.
yeah, they did the right thing. Yeah, at least like visually, they made sure to keep the design. I don't know, like it's funny, like the more they stayed away from the likenesses of any of the actors. I mean, yeah, Thor kind of looks a certain way that obviously inspired the way he looked in the live action movies, which now in turn is inspiring how he looks in a bunch of media. So it's kind of nice just looking at Captain America and Thor and Ultimate Alliance and not think, oh, this looks like a knockoff, like Chris Hemsworth or something. Versus the other one where, they kind of pick this middle of the road somewhere between movie and original, and it does end up coming off like, oh, this is what our character that we couldn't get the rights to would look like. It's like, oh, not quite Mark Ruffalo, not quite, Chris Evans or whatever. But I mean, that aside, yeah, nice couch turn your brain off game. I wonder if, I don't know, I guess if like the Warrior games were 4-player and online, maybe I would actually enjoy them, because I could very much, see myself just playing it casually in the background, not really paying attention. Because sometimes you do just want to play a game where you just kind of mash A, like mindlessly, and destroy everything in your path. But yeah,
I think you kind of summed it up. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head here, and I think it's actually like with my experience with Ultimate Alliance 3 as well, and I think it's actually a good explanation for why Nintendo picked up publishing rights for this game of all things in the first place, and how it can kind of presumably feed into something like Midnight Suns. Because like I remember back when at E3 when I demoed it, which actually I said that Avengers and this were announced at the same time. They were not, but they were at E3 at the same time. And the thing that most stuck out in my mind from that demo, and I'm sure I said it here on the show at the time, was that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 really seems to embody what the Switch is about. Like, even on the show floor, you could sense it's very pick up and play, very co-op friendly. You can hop in and out, really kind of breezy. And now that I've gone through the final game, it does feel that same way, like you're saying, Angel. Like, you definitely can trot this thing out at like a game night with friends. Not like how we do it online. I mean, like, if you're all doing like couch co-op or something, you can like trot this out. Everyone can have fun with it. Like you said, it can be kind of mindless, but I'd almost use a different term. I'd say it's extremely accessible. And like the onboarding of new players into this game is really wherever you want it to be. You can hop in and choose a hero you recognize, all which, again, are drawn not just in the comics, but also the mainstream media that like spun out of the comics. But then, so, they're recognizable people who maybe aren't even that closely watching Marvel, but then if you want,
for every like recognizable character, there's like
that's true.
8 that are like, who?
Yeah, no, they have some deeper cuts, which I think is, I think it kind of mirrors the gameplay structure. Because like if you want someone casual, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. You could just button mash, like it's fine. Like you mentioned, you did. Or if you want to do like some cool combos, like the game allows that pretty easily. While pull off some elaborate move with teammates, like your alliance moves. Well, the game every time you do it flashes on screen exactly what to do when it's tried. But there is kind of that deeper side if you want it. When we chose not to, but like, if you want to pick the character you don't recognize, or you're like the deeper Marvel fan, there are the stats, there are the ISO cubes to collect, there are team attributes you can distribute. There's this huge like web. It has these layers that I imagine, especially when playing solo, are actually somewhat important. But and even in multiplayer, if you plan to actually like make it through the game, you can do what we do and stick with one hero and just level them up and kind of breeze through. But one of the friends we're playing with, he has been cycling through it with different heroes. And that's an opportunity to kind of grind and do more. And there's, like challenge rooms, and there's different ways to, and like a boss rush-ish sort of thing. And there's like different ways to like get more out of the game. And I think it's this balancing act of like it being super kind of mindless and breezy if you want to be, but if you want to like get into it, you can. That's probably why Nintendo was interested in it, because it kind of, it has that easy entry point, yet there's more people want it. And I think that it has been at least, maybe a little less now because the Switch is kind of just like everything. But for a while there, I feel like Nintendo's really angling the Switch as like a gamer machine with accessibility. And this kind of was like the perfect. It filled a hole in the lineup that wasn't there, but matched that like idea, that concept. So yeah, that
yeah.
Which kind of makes it the perfect segue into something like Midnight Suns, right? Because if the gameplay of Midnight Suns shapes up to be deeper than this, which by all accounts it probably will, it's kind of just the next step down that path, right? Like the real-time combat becomes turn-based combat. The ability to upgrade moves and stats going from, kind of necessary to presumably very necessary. The story, like I was saying, is sort of like one step deeper into Marvel lore. So, yeah, I mean, like if you asked me a year or two ago, would I be interested in Marvel Midnight Suns? I'd probably say not really, even though I love, following the shows and the movies. But, I don't necessarily know where your head's at with this, Angel, but at least after Ultimate Alliance 3, knowing the pedigree of the developer behind Midnight Suns, kind of, like, it's not a slam dunk yes for me, but I would say I'm more intrigued coming out of Ultimate Alliance 3 than I would have been if I hadn't played Ultimate Alliance 3, if that makes sense.
It does. Not the case for me. I was very much, like, the only reason I ended up playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance was because,
me.
It was for the friend group.
I'm the one that pitched it, yeah.
Yeah, like, I really didn't want to play it, just because I typically don't really have a lot of interest, at least enough interest in the Marvel Universe in game form to play a Marvel Universe game. So, yeah, it was like, yeah, it was not, even though, like, yeah, I enjoyed my time with it, I very much am not looking forward to the next Marvel game that I have to play. So
I'll spare you. No Midnight Sun, don't worry.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, even if I do end up playing it, like, yeah, it's the kind of game that, yeah, a Marvel game like this, with the exception of individual hero games, like, and I guess literally just Spider-Man. Yeah, this is, what is it, Marvel Midnight Suns? It's not off my radar. Like, it's not off my radar. No, yeah, it's off my radar. I took it off the radar. I made sure it's not on the radar.
You shot a missile at the submarine and it is gone now from the radar.
Yeah, I had to clear up the clutter, essentially.
Well, like,
because one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Fair.
There's plenty of trash that I am looking forward to.
And I have to imagine, Kevin, you're just waiting and seeing what Fire Access does with this thing.
Yeah, so that'll be Fire Access does more than XCOM. They are the developers of Civilization, which right. I was obsessed with Civilization 5 for the longest time in the world. I remember I was on a Discord call with Angel's brother Elvis, and I remember starting it up and just thinking to myself, oh no, this game is going to ruin my life. So they make some stellar games.
Yeah.
So
I forgot they did Civ, honestly.
Be curious. Yeah.
Because I always forget that, like, it keeps coming up and be like, oh yeah, it's the same team, because, like, it's such different. I mean, there's a little overlap conceptually, but it's such different, like, Civilization and XCOM. Like, it's, they don't seem like they pair under the same developer.
Yeah, they're sort of like turn-based tactics games to a degree.
Yeah, but, like, just the scope difference. Like, it's like if if Maxis, when they, SimCity, if they also made, like, I don't even know, I can't even think of a good name, like Final Fantasy Tactics. I don't know, like, it's just sort of like this weird, but it makes sense, yeah. So yeah, we'll see with Midnight Suns. Actually, by the time a lot of people hear this, there will be gameplay. It's like 3 days after this goes live. But as of now, I guess we'll wait and see. One game, I said Midnight Suns isn't a slam dunk for me. One game that is a slam dunk, yes, is Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. And if we're talking bite-sized news, it's probably the king of it, even at Gamescom. Because for the past month or so, Sega's been drip-feeding out new characters you can stick inside your monkey ball, which I promise you is not a euphemism. But so far we've gotten Sonic. We mentioned last episode Beat from Jet Set Radio, the dude from Yakuza. It's all very much Sega kind of taking a page from the Smash Bros. Playbook of character crossovers. Maybe like the title page or the table of contents, the characters aren't actually changing anything. It's kind of shallow. It's cosmetic. But a page nonetheless. And then...
Wait, so it really is just cosmetic?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, it looks like it is. And then wow. what gets interesting is...
Because it seemed potentially awesome, like, Sonic being a little faster, or Persona having a little grapple, like if you fall off the stage, you could just, like, swing back.
Yeah, I mean, they might. The Persona one which we're about to get to is DLC, but they might. But what I was going to say is it's to kind of...
I mean, at least they're free, right?
No, well, yes and no. So what they're doing is Sonic, Beat, Yakuza, Guy, they're all in the game day one baked in, I believe. But now what they're announcing, and they announced this during opening night live. Actually, they kind of just took the whole playbook from Smash Bros. They didn't just take a page at this point. They had a Jeff Keighley production announce a surprise Persona 5 character being added as DLC to an existing known game. Except it wasn't Joker, it was Morgana, and she's now in a monkey ball. Or he, not she. He is now in a monkey ball. But yes, it's apparently going to cost $5. So, once again, I turn to Kevin here. You like Persona?
Way too much for Morgana.
Yeah.
Way too much.
I
like Morgana. Way too much money for Morgana.
And I like the idea of turning Monkey Ball into like a Sega celebration. And in and of itself, that works pretty well. I mean, Atlas is now part of Sega, right? So in and of itself, that works pretty well. But especially it's Monkey Ball's 20th anniversary. Sega just had their 60th anniversary. They're doing some silly stuff along with the characters. I mean, you can roll around as a Dreamcast if you want. Like, that's the thing. But why is Morgana $5? I don't get, if you think about how much you get for $1 more in Smash Bros. With each fighter, it just seems insane to me that skin alone, as it stands now, is nearly that same price. 99 cents could have been a sweet spot. Maybe even $2 if they're feeling adventurous. But $5 for a skin? Really? Also, Kevin, does it bother you at all that Sega keeps giving Nintendo platforms stuff to promote Persona 5, but the Persona 5 itself is still not on a Nintendo platform? We've gotten so much around it, but they've yet to put...
I mean, Strikers is on...
But not real
Switch,
Persona, Not real Persona 5. Spin-off Persona 5.
I mean, Strikers lets them get away with putting a lot of things on Switch, I guess.
Yeah,
now.
That's fair. But still, it's just kind of it's just funny. This whole thing is just funny. But, I'm hoping to continue the trend. Maybe come to their senses and do a more reasonable price, because I would like them to be able to keep going down this road of crossovers. I feel like someone like Billy Hatcher would be perfect to add. Or maybe even if Sega were branch out to third-party partnerships. What better way to celebrate the 4th anniversary of Donkey Kong than throwing Donkey Kong or Diddy into a monkey ball for $1? I don't know. Is there anyone you guys would want to see in a ball, or to word differently? Any Sega IPs you wish they'd revive?
Would be interesting.
What?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
A Morph Ball.
Oh, Morph Ball would be kind of cool. I'm curious to go down this road of Jake Gyllenhaal though.
Bubble Boy.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, I forgot he was in that. Honestly,
he was Bubble Boy. I thought that was Adam Sandler.
I'm pretty sure it was Jake Gyllenhaal. God damn it! Now I gotta look it up.
Well, you looked that up. Another idea if we're talking weird. At this point, Sega, just put I'm not even kidding. Put a Daytona USA car.
It was Jake Gyllenhaal.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a wide open world of options to put people and things in balls. But for $5 a pop, yeah, I don't know if there's enough DLC to get. Never mind Jake Gyllenhaal, that's obviously not happening. But to get Billy Hatcher, to get a Daytona car, to get an Outrun pair of sunglasses, an Afterburner jet, I can't see any of that happening if they're charging $5 a pop.
An Afterburner jet,
right? That'd be kind of cool. I mean, come on, they have hardware in it already. You can roll around as a Game Gear. Is a jet that much more extreme at that point?
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah. So, but I do love that they're embracing the absurdity, and Monkey Ball is such a weird concept to begin with. So for them, just be you know what? Let's just follow the industry trends and pump IPs in there, but do it in kind of this goofy way. Fortnite it, Smash Bros it, whatever term you want to use. Hey, why not at this point? It'll get extra attention on the game. It means we might get more Monkey Ball. That's all great in my mind. But at Gamescom, I feel like the Smash parallels continued outside of just Super Monkey Ball's approach. Because this week, both in Opening Night Live and then outside of Opening Night Live, and this is more up Angel's alley, April O'Neil of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had really been having a moment. At Opening Night Live, it was announced for the first time in franchise history she's going to be playable in the upcoming Shredder's Revenge, which was also quietly delayed till next year. But the next...
Maybe that specific version of April, but I'm pretty sure she was already a playable fighter in the 2005 or 6 game, TMNT Mutant Metal.
Sorry, are you saying that Jeff Keighley lied to me? How dare you and or he?
Sure he did.
Wow.
I'm gonna double check.
I feel
but,
betrayed
yeah, I'm
because
pretty
they were
sure
definitely
that was
implying it's like playable for the first time anywhere. And then the next day, that was doubled down on because Nickelodeon All Star Brawl announced that she will also be a fighter there alongside Cat Dog. So she really did. I guess whether or not she was playable in Mutant Melee, she had a solid 24 hours at Gamescom. And I have to imagine.
Yep, she's definitely a playable
Wow.
character.
I trusted Jeff Keighley. This is a really sad day. But anyway, Angel, I have to imagine you have some thoughts on April popping up in all these places.
Yeah, so as far as beyond that her being playable not being a new thing, I mean the character itself, I mean it's cool. Like, yeah, a big Ninja Turtles fan, but it's funny. It's more like the specific April that they picked that doesn't have me that excited. I mean, I think having April as a playable character in general is pretty.
Are you talking more? Not to interrupt, but
for
okay,
All
yeah, I was
Stars.
gonna say.
I mean, as far as like, yeah, as far as, but I mean, first addressing the actual game announced at Gamescom, or talked about at Gamescom, like her being playable in that game makes perfect sense. The game is set in that universe of the '90s show. I mean, I guess it started in the super late '80s. And yeah, fits right in. Pretty cool. I mean, it looks like they're setting up to have Casey on the opposite side. Maybe Splinter. Maybe both. I mean, at this point, it seems like they're just going to go nuts with it. I mean, the game is looking really polished, although it's, as I mentioned many times before, not my cup of tea as far as game genres. But, you know, it's played with 4 people. I'll be able to tolerate it. So, at least, I don't know. I love that this game looks like a lot of heart and soul is being poured into it for a turtle property. You don't really see that a lot, which is always great. But, yeah, April's combos look interesting. Just kind of punching and kicking, but at least they made it look in an interesting way in the beat-em-up game. But as far as the Nickelodeon one, yeah, I mean, I guess, again, it's not like they had to stick with that April. It's supposed to be, you know, a Nickelodeon amalgam game. So if anything, I thought it would have been more interesting if they had picked different Turtles characters from different generations. Like maybe mix up the Turtles you have 4 Turtles, you have 4 different animated series. And maybe alternate costumes will work, but April joining it.
Would it have been a licensing issue?
Well, no, they own it.
Yeah, I think they own the whole IP.
Oh,
now.
They just straight up own all of Ninja Turtles?
Yeah,
when did they buy it again?
Yeah,
it was like they
Turtles.
licensed it for a while and then they just like absorbed it at some point, right? Like there's 2 separate prongs.
No. It was just straight up.
Oh, from the start? I
Like,
thought they
it
just
was
had a
supposed to-
licensing deal initially. Interesting.
No. Yeah, they as soon as I think around 2010, 2011 that they bought them. That they bought.
It was that long ago already? Wow.
Before that, Peter Wright. Peter Laird was the sole owner of the Turtles at that point. Kevin Eastman, the other co-creator of the TMNT, had already sold his share to Peter Laird so that he could pursue his own metal music stuff. And as a result, missed out on the Viacom money, which he is very much sad about. But, you know, it's funny that meant Peter Laird would retire, sold it to Nickelodeon, and Kevin Eastman ended up coming back to be one of the main artists and writers for the currently ongoing Ninja Turtle comic. So it's kind of interesting how that kind of flip-flopped. But yeah, I mean, that being said, there's a bunch of different kinds of Aprils that I felt would have made for a much more interesting playable character, especially because, you know, this April, I mean, and this is just like, you know, the fanboy in me, like, because, you know, like, oh, this April was just a news reporter. She never really fought all that much. But you have other Aprils that were straight up trained by Splinter, you know, the Turtles sensei, martial arts teacher. And there's even a version of April that was trained by Splinter and has psychic powers. That just seems way more interesting as a fighting game character. But, yeah, I mean, news reporter April,
Do you think
getting
it's
her moment to shine.
do you think it's just a nostalgia play? Like in the same way that they're, you know, throwing Cat Dog in and all these things from our youth?
Yeah, I mean, oh, like, heck yeah. Like, I mean, just the fact that the Turtles so far have only been modeled after the old show and not the ones actually created by Nickelodeon. Because right now Nickelodeon has 2 shows that were, by all accounts, created by them. the 2012 show, that's CG, and the currently airing one, the Rise of the TMNT with the, I guess, the art style that was very polarizing and design choices by fans. But, it still looks like quality. Like, I was shocked they didn't put any of those. And unfortunately for them, the Rise of the TMNT designs don't really lend themselves to just character swapping, because, yeah, the turtles are all, like, kind of different sizes. Like, Raphael is, like, a huge monster, as opposed to just being, like, a recoloring of the other turtles. But what I find most interesting, honestly, is the discourse around it. Just because I've been on the other side, Smash Brothers character announcements, people, myself included, when a new Fire Emblem character gets announced, people kind of roll their eyes. It's like, oh, another Fire Emblem character. We don't need another Fire Emblem character. And TMNT already seems to be the target of that, because I saw multiple comments across multiple, like, sources, like YouTube video comments or just Twitter post comments, that they're like, oh, TMNT is the Fire Emblem of, I guess, the Nickelodeon Smashdown. Because it gets a lot of people, and it kind of, and some just straight up admitted it, like, just didn't grow up with TMNT, or just didn't really know much about TMNT. So to them, they're just like, as they put it, wasted character slots, or just the Fire Emblem. There's so many. Because presumably we're going to get maybe the other two turtles and probably a Shredder, especially if we have April. Unless we don't, in which case it'll be even more, like, interesting that they picked, April as a third Rev if we're not going to get any more TMNT ones. But I feel this all but confirms we're going to get at least one more. And, yeah, it's just interesting being on the side where, a franchise I obviously love is the one that's kind of being targeted as the, I guess, the disliked franchise. But, people gotta learn to respect their elders. I mean, TMNT literally predates Nickelodeon.
I do find it amusing that Fire Emblem is now shorthand.
This can be said about Fire Emblem.
Yeah, isn't Fire Emblem like one of the longest running?
I know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, oh, all right, I get it. But, I mean, come on, Westerners. It's not like you guys were Fire Emblem fans when this was on the NES. It was only, like, post-GameCube.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some truth to that.
Yeah, oh, totally, yeah. I mean, we didn't even get it. The first one we got was in 2002. That was, 15 years after the series started. Yeah. But yeah, I was starting to say, or maybe I did actually say it, but I think it's so funny that the shorthand for this issue is Fire Emblem. And everyone knows what that means in this community.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of like the big stuff out of, or not even big stuff, the tidbits out of Gamescom. But let's end with something that does have a little more depth to it. The final topic of the show, or the final bucket, last week's Pokemon Presents, the bulk of which was dedicated to some first real details on Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Pokemon Legends Arceus. It also had some bite-sized bits of news, like Pokemon Unite hitting mobile on September 22nd. There's some events in Pokemon Masters EX and Pokemon Go. There also is this announcement of Pokemon Cafe Remix, which actually, if it's okay, I'm going to touch on that real quick before I get to the big guns. Because here's the thing about Pokemon Cafe Remix, or Pokemon Cafe Mix, the original. The game's underrated. Like, you can't really appreciate the core puzzle mechanic, and I said this to you guys when I gave impressions a year ago, but you can't really appreciate that core puzzle mechanic just looking at the game in screenshots or videos. Like, it seems like you're swirling around random puzzle pieces shaped like Pokemon's heads, which, I mean, you kind of are, but within that swirling, you're trying to form combos to collect and clear out certain ingredients, and you only have a set number of moves, and each ingredient can impact your comboing differently, and never mind the special moves that each Pokemon can provide that shake up how the pieces operate, and there is a lot to it, actually, relatively speaking, and it is a lot of fun. But also, I couldn't tell you the last time I played it. And for puzzle games in particular, replayability is kind of key, right? Like, even me, the guy who doesn't go back to his games enough, I go back to Tetris 99 all the time. I used to revisit Meteos and Magnetica of all games in the years of the DS. Puzzle League's always something I like to return to, but like Cafe Mix, I haven't, that kind of fell off my radar. So I have to imagine I'm not the only one, which is probably why they're boosting the game with this new Pokemon Cafe Remix relaunch, which they announced, and great punny name, really, really working that mix well. But they didn't really say anything about what it entails. Like, the idea of new puzzle challenges and items is intriguing, but I guess And I guess adding new Pokemon and outfits to dress up your Pokemon, sure. But as like a lapsed Cafe Mix player, and the reason I wanted to touch on this real quick before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the presentation, is I feel like they announced change without actually talking about change. Like, it did nothing. Like, this may be an example when bite-sized news is too bite-sized. Like, I literally had no emotional response to this except, oh. And if I, as a player who, if I don't know what to be excited about, what about folks who never tried Cafe Mix? Like, did that announcement do anything for those guys? Did you guys feel anything? Like, are you kind of like, oh, maybe I'll check out Cafe Remix? Like, I have to imagine it just did nothing for you, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is as you feared. Like, when I saw it, trailer, or I guess the announcement of this, I was already not playing it, so this definitely didn't change my mind. It didn't show enough.
And like, Kevin, I imagine you...
Yeah, or at the very least explain why I should be excited about it.
And Kevin, I have to imagine you're kind of in the same boat.
Mobile gaming.
Hey.
No,
it's on
I'm
Switch,
kidding.
sir.
I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding because my iPhone 10 is on its last legs, and if I play anything that's graphic intensive, my phone just decides to become what Doc Ock was working on at the end of Spider-Man 2.
But it is on Switch, so no real excuse there. But no, I get what you mean, though. Yeah, like, it never even crossed your radar for that reason, I'm sure, right?
It was, it just never caught my eye.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, I want to be excited as someone whose eye it did catch, and that's what's kind of frustrating, is, like, I just don't know what I'm excited for. Like, why should I be excited? Why should you who never, like, how's it catch your eye? How's it get Angel's attention? Like, all they did was go, hey, remember this game? There'll be more to remember and play. We won't tell you what, but just back of your mind, which I guess is news in and of itself, but I don't know. It felt weird. Fortunately, neither of the other games in the presentation had this problem. If there's one thing the presents, I think, actually did well, it was to spell out pretty much what to expect from each, and that is, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Pokemon Legends. Which one are you guys most excited for?
I wouldn't use the word excited.
Interested in. Going to put down money for, possibly. Whether you want to begrudgingly or not.
There we go. Yeah, because, I mean, as I stated, like, my overall feelings on Diamond and Pearl haven't really changed all too much since its first announcement, where it's like, this looks too similar to what I played back in the day. It, like, it has that effect. I mean, as an updated version of the original, which is basically what it is, because it's not a remake. Like, I guess I would consider Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, there isn't much for me to get too excited about, but as just something to, I guess, just to toy with, because essentially, like I'm currently, like, just practicing Japanese with, like, some coworkers, and it just seemed like a good option for a game that I could try to play out entirely in Japanese. Just because I already played through the plot once, doesn't look that much different. And from my understanding, Pokemon games are really, really good to just practice and learn the languages with, just because of how dialogue heavy it is and how much not complicated grammar it uses. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it for that.
What about Legends?
Not so much any other content.
Where you sit on Legends, or where you stand on Legends.
Oh, and I guess the fact that it doesn't have a competitive online ranking leaderboard actually ended up being a plus for me. Normally I don't play Pokemon for the plot whatsoever, so it's kind of interesting that I'm playing this one for the plot, just because of the dialogue. And in not having an online ranking system, in a time when, life is short and we gotta make best use of our time and all that, like, I just don't really have the bandwidth to really dive into competitive Pokemon anymore, I feel. Like, luckily, with the magic of, like, data transfers and all that, I still have access to all my competitive Pokemon that I could presumably put in home and then migrate over to this Diamond game, or at least the one that it will allow, which is great. Like, the past me did all the heavy lifting. I could just reap the benefits. But the fact that the competitive ranked online isn't there makes me happy that I don't have to feel tempted or feel like I'm missing out. I just get to enjoy the game and just play the multiplayer whenever I feel like it. And yeah, that's kind of cool. But I mean, as far as the Arceus game goes, yeah, I guess I don't really plan on getting it. It just doesn't. I mean, it looks fine for what it's trying to do, but like I said, like Pokemon has only ever really been at least like up until this version of the game, the competitive turn-based game. I don't often play any other versions of Pokemon. Even Snap, I didn't.
I'm playing this version of Pokemon. That was my New Jersey accent.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I wish I could say more in the Jersey accent.
I think it's Jersey. Yeah, it's kind of Jersey, right?
Yeah, so
I'm sure you've been to New Jersey.
Yeah, it's kind of Jersey.
Yeah, so this isn't any different. No real, I guess, drive to play it unless, I don't know. I don't know what they would have to do to get me interested in it particularly.
How about?
But maybe are you?
Yeah, well, Kevin, where'd your head at with all this? With like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Legends.
Diamond and Pearl, I might get it, as I've stated multiple times on this podcast. Those were the games that I was playing when my DS got stolen, and didn't finish the game. So I might go back, maybe, and then Arceus. The little tidbit of gameplay that they did show and talk about looked interesting. It just didn't look interesting enough for me.
That's fair. It is interesting that you guys seem more into Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It sounds like in part because of how close it is to the original experience. Either for nostalgia or for...
Yeah, that used to be a detriment.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah, because I'm...
No. I would definitely be way more excited about it if it was using like the Sword and Shield engine, because, I mean, I was on my Pokemon hiatus. Right. Like, as much as I feel like, maybe I shouldn't get back into competitive Pokemon, if the new Diamond and Pearl used the new engine and pretty much brought over all the new the competitive mechanics, and they just continue where they left off like they usually do, I would have totally made that time for it and gone on board with it. So I mean, yeah, it's still kind of a bummer that it is what it is, but I've come to find a reason to appreciate that, I guess.
Right. It's just, I guess it's just kind of interesting that, and it's not a knock, it's just interesting that you're, erring on the side of familiarity, and I'm super interested in seeing how Legends branches out. Like, to me, that's the one that's, like, I'm not at all that, I don't think I'm getting Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Like, I don't think I bought Alpha, Ruby and Omega Sapphire either, actually, so I don't usually, but, like, Legends looks kind of interesting, and, to your point about how, like, if it was the proper remake, it does feel like Game Freak is once again sort of toying with what their usual release structure is. Like, first we saw them do it by replacing a third version of the core games with DLC to kind of prop up sales of the primary two, Sword and Shield and the expansion pass, and it did work wonders. Like, Sword and Shield are, like, I think they're just shy of being the best-selling entries in franchise history. Expansion pass obviously gave it a boost because, those sales trucked along in year two, and now it's kind of happening again with how they evolve their current engine, because in the past, like, we were kind of talking about the remakes, they do upgrade to the existing generation's engine and then add something new. So, like, Fire Red and Leaf Green, they were upgrade into that Game Boy Advance engine and added the wireless dongle. Heart Gold and Soul Silver upgrade, but with the Poké Walker. Even Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire at least, like, brought Mega Evolutions into Hoenn for the first time. So, like, they were all doing something that was a little more than just the original game. Here, though, it seems like from the presentation, Game Freak sort of forked what would be one combined game and then adjusted the scope accordingly. And I made this dumb joke on Twitter that the trailers for the two games were edited in such a way that they demonstrated each one's scale, and obviously that wasn't on purpose, but it is kind of true. Like, if you watch, like, the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl trailer, it's very focused in on exactly what the first versions did. I mean, visually represented by they do those weird zoom-ins on the trailer where, like, zooming in on the text that highlights each feature in the text boxes in the game. And, like, the biggest new feature is apparently capsule decoration. So
that's not a new
they're
feature.
acting like it is. I'm putting new in
yeah.
quotes. Like the base new feature is capsule decorations. So
I love that feature actually.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking the game.
I hope they keep the alphabet because those were really fun to. I mean, obviously, this is probably why they. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't allow these to be used online because you could literally spell things out. Like if you capture the unknowns, you get a letter that you could add to the capsules. And yeah, you could spell all sorts of
appropriate things,
funny little things when your Pokemon comes out, depending on the Pokemon. But yeah, I mean, also actually kind of happy to, I guess, revisit the mines because that was also a really fun feature that my brother and I spent a lot of time playing and setting up traps for each other. Yeah, the underground stuff, but at least that also looks like it got expanded a little with like a baby wild zone.
Yeah, like they're like little bits and pieces there, but most of the game's very 1-to-1, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Tons of games do that quite well. There's obviously interest in it. I mean, even here, 2/3 of our podcasts are more into Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl than Legends. But for Game Freak, I feel like it is a pretty different route they're going, right? Especially if you then contrast it with what you have with Pokemon Legends Arceus, which, to go back to my silly trailer editing metaphor, this is the one with the sweeping zoom outs and pans of vast vistas full of new ideas and whatnot. And but ultimately, it is, I feel like Legends is what would have been kind of the next logical step for the Wild area and for Sword and Shield's engine, right? Like if you look at the game, it feels like the Wild area on steroids to the point where a lot of fans who had issues with the sort of bare bones look of Sword and Shield, relatively speaking, are finding it equally problematic with Legends. Like Kotaku had a whole article about how people are complaining about the trees not looking good enough, which, to be clear, is dumb. But, it's very clearly the Sword and Shield engine expanded. But even conceptually, if you're out seeing Pokemon in the wild area, it's kind of like fully realized Safari Zone, of course, how you approach them should matter. Of course, even if you do turn-based battles, they're going to need to look different so you stay immersed in this more real open world. It just seems like by shaking up their usual release pattern, Game Freak has given themselves a lot more freedom to go with it for Pokemon Legends and really expand on ideas. Like, the idea of questing for certain Pokemon or introducing a further level of strategy with that agile, strong mechanic where, when you go into battle, you can pick speed over potentially a more powerful attack or vice versa turn by turn. So there's 2 layers to your strategy now. It's all, it's all this added flexibility that Game Freak has, I guess you could say, because they broke their usual mold. And yet, if somehow it doesn't work out, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, they can fall back on that in terms of sales and it's going to be fine. So it's just interesting how this is very much their usual approach. They just literally forked it into 2 different games. So personally, I'm excited, less so for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I'm more interested in Legends, not just to see where it goes, but where it takes Pokemon in general. Because Game Freak made a point in the presentation that you touched on, Angel, which is these games aren't part of the competitive scene. You were talking about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but Legends as well. Both of them are not part of the scene, which sure, okay, that's fine, but there's no way they're going to start adding regional variants like the Growlithe and new evolutions like Basculegion or however you say it, and keep them in a dead end of a spin-off. These are mainline game moves, and I suspect much like how the DS was the third pillar for Nintendo until it suddenly wasn't because it was successful, I'm imagining that Legends, its concepts, its Pokemon, its ideas will be folded into the next mainline games ultimately. Obviously there may be some growing pains. Will people be into needing to craft everything a la Breath of the Wild? Even Pokeballs need to be crafted? I don't know. And, there's still a big lingering question of what sort of open world it actually is. And, what do they want to do versus what the technology allow? Everyone is making the Breath of the Wild comparisons, but the fact that Jubilife Village is described as kind of the hub, and then you set out on your quest from that hub, makes me wonder if the region will actually be kind of divided up into sealed off sections, kind of like earlier Monster Hunter games. Because then you start in a town and then you go do a quest, you come back to that town. It seems like it's structurally kind of similar.
Yeah, the structure is.
Yeah.
It's
actually the whole game is, if you think about it, because the quest concept.
You literally go in and hunt.
Yeah, and not only that, but Monster Hunter, you go back to the same monsters multiple times, right? It's not just you get the one monster and you move on. There's different challenges involving the same set of monsters, right? Yeah, because this is the same. It's not this, unlike a normal Pokedex where you're just trying to catch one of every. in screenshots they released, and I think in some of the footage, you could see that there are multiple reasons to catch a Pokemon. You catch a male, you catch a female, and you do this and you do that. So it is very, like, I do wonder how much, everyone keeps saying Breath of the Wild, but now that I think about it, I do wonder how much this is actually a Pokemon Monster Hunter versus Pokemon Breath of the Wild, or some amalgamation of the two. So I think that while, you know, we did learn a fair amount about Legends and its new systems in this Presents, but there's still, like, a lot more to learn. And, yeah, it just kind of feels like the stepping stone into something big for Pokemon. And I think that's why I'm excited for it. Like, I'm very curious to see where it goes. You know, come January, you know, getting a chance to play what will likely be laying the groundwork for Pokemon's future is kind of cool. I've always talked about on the show, I'm into, like, the world building of Pokemon more than the competitive scene, kind of like the foil to Angel. But yeah, I think that's why I'm interested in Legends. But it is really interesting to see Game Freak, especially releasing them so close together, basically take what was one concept for most of Pokemon's life, this, you know, remake in the modern engine, and just fork it so strongly, like so clear cut. Like, here's the remake, here's something new. Like it's interesting. I'm curious how it shakes out for them. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much the Pokemon Presents. So I think with that, unless you guys had any other topics, that might do it for this episode. Did
you have any topics?
No. Kevin?
Yeah.
No,
all right. I mean, we started small. We ended a little bit bigger, I guess, at least hypothetically with the future of Pokemon. But yeah, that does it for a show. We'll be back with a new random Nintendo next weekend, followed, of course, by a new random Nintendo on September 12th. Will it finally be where we share impressions of the Great Ace Attorney? The saga continues. You'll just have to wait and see. But to make, I feel like the clock's ticking. There's gonna be other games coming out. This is the window. This is the moment. This is when it happens. Hopefully. But yeah, to see if it actually happens after that build up, you can follow us and subscribe to us on the internet. We are on Twitter at Random Nintendo. We are on podcast apps around the internet. You know, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Pandora, Spotify. Our YouTube channel is Nintendo.com. We're on iHeartRadio. We are soon, hopefully, going to be on Amazon Music. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, you can also find us individually on Twitter. I'm JSR7. Angel's WEIRO_O. That is Wero. And Kevin is KVN Gomi. So I think I'm done with all the housekeeping. Kevin, final word.
Put Jake Gyllenhaal in the monkey ball.